All right.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to December 18th and the 18th day of Commitmas. Tonight's session is going to be how do you get a hoverboard from 2015 to 1955? Cherry picking. Tonight's presenter is going to be Ryan McKern. He's at the McKern on Twitter. And as usual, a couple of quick notes. You can get in on the conversation on Twitter at Commitmas and at vBrownbag, of course. The recorded episodes can all be found at bit.ly/commitmas2, and the GitHub repository is github.com/commitmas/30 days of Commitmas 2015, as opposed to 2014. So without further ado, let me cut it on over to Ryan. If I can give mouse and keyboard to Ryan. Oh, wait, hold on. There you go.
Okay.
You have
Hello.
presenter.
All right. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get this all to agree with itself. Show my screen.
Awesome. I can see it now. I can see your screen.
All right. All right. I'm going to load that up on my remote so I can follow along. Hi. Like Chris said, this is going to be how do you get a hoverboard from 2015 to 1955, cherry picking. I am Ryan McKern. I'm a release engineer at Puppet Labs in Portland, Oregon. Maybe you've heard of us. Hopefully you use our software. But this is not a commercial for that. At Puppet Labs, I work with Git every day. I don't know if anyone besides the system engineering group at GitHub could claim to be an expert in Git. Git is a little bit like a DeLorean time machine in that Git is unwieldy, radioactive, and very, very powerful. So I'm going to jump into a topic that's probably going to come up as you're starting to move forward with Git, which is cherry picking. And we're going to dig a little bit, but like everything in Git, the hole is bottomless. So there's always going to be strange edge cases, weird corner cases, and Abyssian black depths that you probably don't want to spelunk in. So, as the title implied, I am going to be using Back to the Future 2, which was a 1989 Robert Zemeckis film about an old man who can't leave well enough alone and the teenager who enables him, to explain how we cherry-pick commits in Git. Before we get into that, I just want to touch briefly on what we already know. On Monday, December 7th, Mike taught us about using multiple Git branching strategies. On Friday, December 11th, Rob taught us how to clean up our history by rebasing. And that brings us to a third choice, cherry picking. This is how you graft individual commits into branches where the commits did not originate from. Git cherry picking allows you to merge a single commit from one branch into another. This is the amazingly terse description that the Git man page provides for cherry picking. If you want to take a second, look it over, allow it to sink in, flow through you, pass over you. It tells you a lot without telling you anything, which is indicative of all Git man pages. But in plain English, what that means is the first thing a cherry pick does is it replays the work from a given commit ID on top of the current head for whatever branch you're working in. By doing so, a new git SHA-1 sum is generated because the parent of the commit has changed. By default, this also means that the work gets a new timestamp. That almost never matters, except for the occasional edge case where it does. But in practice, it's just like adding the commit you've already done from one branch to another. We would do this in Git because maybe we're not ready to do a full branch merge yet. Maybe the branches are too disparate still, or there's work in the branch that you're picking from that may not be ready for release yet. Alternatively, maybe you just don't want all of the other work from the branch you've picked from. Branching is cheap in Git, so it's very common to use branches for proof of concept work that never actually goes back into master. Cherry picking is basically dodgy time travel. Since time travel is inherently dangerous, and cherry picking is, again, basically dodgy time travel, we're going to go through an example that I have never actually used live, and I've never demoed it. Maybe this will work, maybe it won't. Before we get into it, audience beware, cherry picking is not a substitute for merging or rebasing. I'm going to try and show you why by intentionally breaking the branch using cherry picking. It's either going to work the way I've planned it, or it's going to fail, and we'll all go through it together. Let's see. That's not the slide I want. That is my terminal. Hopefully the text is a good size. Hopefully everyone can read it. We're currently in a Git repository that I've named Timeline. We're on the master branch. We have a couple of other branches available to us, specifically 1955, 1968, 1985, 2002, and 2015. This is, oh, hang on a second while we're in here, git clean F, because there are files we don't want yet. Okay. So we have some images. These are all things that exist in 1955 at this point. If we look at our history, I have an alias for that. You're going to see that there's an initial commit. I've added a clock tower. We put George and Lorraine in 1955. We've added Biff Tannen. The kids are riding scooters, and so on and so on, all the way up to the current state, which is head, where the DeLorean currently flies. So lots of things have happened one after the other. But let's check out 1955 and make sure that we're clean. And you'll see there's a lot less files in this directory and a lot less history. So this is what 1955 looked like. We have All-Star Sneakers. We have Biff Tannen. We have a clock tower. We have a young, handsome George. We have a young, beautiful Lorraine. And we have a janky wooden scooter being ridden around by a couple of kids. Moving forward through time a little bit, we're going to go to 1968. 1968, we're going to see that Martin Seamus McFly is born, and kids probably don't ride scooters now. So, going back to 1968, still got a Biff, still got sneakers, still got a George and Lorraine, but you've also got a Marty. Where did the scooter go? I don't know. It's gone. Moving forward yet again, because time only ever moves forward, we're going to go to 1985. 1985, still got All-Stars, still got Biff, still got a clock tower. Now you have a DeLorean. You've got an older, goofier George. You've got an embittered alcoholic Lorraine. But you've also got Marty. You've got some sweet Nike Bruins. And you've got a skateboard. Not the best 1985. Not bad. Again, still so far, time moves in one direction. And I've accidentally spawned a browser. That's adorable. There we go. That's not what we wanted. We wanted this alias. So there's the commits that add each of these individual items into 1985. If we were to look at the log as a graph, you would see it still just moves linearly. There's no branching, there's no forking, nothing strange has happened. So we're going to move forward to 2002, where the only thing that's changed is that Gray's Sports Almanac has been published. Moving forward to 2015, we have a few more things now. So make sure that everything looks clear when we go back to the window. All-Stars still exist because they never die. Biff Tannen still exists because he never dies. Clock Tower's still around. The DeLorean flies now. George is upside down. We have a sports almanac. Hoverboards exist. Lorraine is a little bit older. Marty looks a little bit sillier. And the Nikes Velcro themselves shut. But still one coherent timeline. Now, what happens in Back to the Future 2 is that the sports almanac goes all the way back to 1955, and it creates a new timeline. So the commit where that happens, where the sports almanac exists, is this one right here, 85C3630. We are going to check out 1955. We are going to make sure everything is clean. Looks great. It's the 1955 we remember. We are going to cherry pick the commit where the sports almanac is published. Now, the parent for that commit is CBE2CCE, where Marty wears Nike Bruins. And the next in the line is 9469312. So we couldn't just merge the 2002 branch into 1955 because they don't share matching endpoints. So what we're going to do is we're going to use cherry pick to slice off this individual commit and append it to the head of our current timeline or branch. There we go. We have just added Gray Sports Almanac to 1955. And if we look at it, it looks something like this. And if we look at the log as a graph, you will see that we have created a branching timeline. All of these commits right here are the ancestors of our new commit, 63F5BED. So let's try and see what happens if we merge 1968 into 1955 now that we've cherry-picked. Ideally, this should break. Things shouldn't work. Maybe it will work. I don't know. Time travel is weird. Great, that worked. So now let's merge 1985 into where we are. That worked. Great. What happens if we try to merge 2002? You know, I was hoping to induce a merge conflict here, and no such luck. However, you will see that our branches are now all kinds of wibbly-wobbly. We have things feeding into each other, we have a couple of new merge commits, and a few things have new IDs. But what we really have here is a messy timeline. Ideally, what I'd hoped to induce and failed at, unfortunately, in the demo that I've never tried and never used live, is a merge conflict. That didn't happen. What we wanted to see was the bad timeline. That's what we were aiming for. If things go south bad enough by cherry-picking too many commits with too much disparate history, instead of cleanly merging and rebasing, you could end up in a state where all Git users end up eventually, which is deleting the repo and cloning a clean one. Oh, it would seem that I've lost my biggest warning. I'm very sorry about that. There's a slide missing. There's supposed to be a slide here that explains... It's all right, it happens. There's supposed to be a slide here that explains that cherry picking is for moving work in between branches, but doesn't substitute for merging and rebasing. It's for slicing off a single commit at a time, and if you use it too many times, you wind up creating a bad history in your branch with uncertain parentage. Then we're going to heroically swing back into the terminal and fix the timeline so that it did not look like this, but was instead one linear timeline again. Now I feel like if I try to fix that timeline, we're going to break it, and I want to see something explode. So let's see what we can do. All right, so we have 1985. 1985 looks like a mess. Here's our 1985 as it exists. There is no sports almanac, so that is still good. What happens if we rebase from 1968, which was the logical... Oh, wait. Let's change that. Let's go to 1968. Again, wrong alias. Scroll back is amazing. There we go. So this is the same clean timeline that we used to have. And we want to merge our existing 1955, which has all kinds of political... There we go. This copy of 1968 has inherited all kinds of weird stuff from before. Now let's check out 1985. Let's see if we can still rebase off of 1968 or if we've broken things yet. Nope. All right, so we've got a relatively broken history in 2002 at this point by merging in all of the disparate timelines that we created by bringing the sports almanac backwards. This is the current state of 2002. Everything's broken down. Everyone's still old. The sports almanac still exists. And yep, can't induce a merge conflict. That is great. It worked when I tested it last night. This is awesome. We'll do it live. That is getting old. All right. So we're currently in 2015. History looks like this. A bunch of things are in the wrong place. We need to go back and we need to fix that. So we're going to go back to 1985 and we're going to save our hoverboard. Sorry, 1955. Okay, and we're going to reset to the last commit from 1955 before, which is 21B7A3. Great. We're going to cherry pick the hoverboard commit onto here. Okay. And ideally, this is where we would have ended up if I'd been able to induce a merge conflict earlier, which I couldn't, which is that 1955 still looks the same, except now we have Marty McFly in a hoverboard. And this has been a whole lot of pageantry and circumstance to basically get us to where we are now, which is roughly the same as where we were before, with an extra commit that originated from a different branch and doesn't share any of the same heritage as where we were before. My apologies for the broken demo. I swear I'm going to go back and figure out why it didn't explode and why it worked cleanly when my test run last night home actually did explode. That's going to be on me, not on the presentation. The presentation is fine. But where we wanted to end up was the good future, where Marty gets the Toyota and Doc gets a family. Where we actually ended up with was a surprisingly clean timeline where apparently all things can happen at once and the order of events no longer matters. My presentation broke causality.
This happens all the time. It's perfectly fine.
It's okay. Everything is fine. This is fine. But now that we have a hoverboard in this particular timeline, I do wonder what happens if we go to 2015 where the hoverboard already exists and we try to merge our existing 1955 in. It just asks me to confirm and it does it recursively. And then we look at the graph again. And this is actually one of the strengths of Git. I just intentionally tried to break the branch by moving something that shares no common parentage between branches out of order into another branch and then merging that into a branch that already contained that commit. And Git is smart. It already knows that work has happened. So what you see here, there's some branching. They get a little bit wobbly. A couple things happen out of order. But where we ultimately end up is a 2015 that has all of the right elements, including the All-Stars, Biff, a clock tower, a flying DeLorean, an upside-down George, a sports almanac, a hoverboard, Old Lorraine, weird-looking Marty, and crazy Nikes, even though we had already brought the hoverboard back to 1955. So cherry picking can be a way to move security changes or short emergency fixes between branches without having to do a complete branch merge that brings all of the other associated history along with them. And then when it's time to reunify the branches, Git is smart enough to understand the cherry picking and merge the branches together into a coherent timeline again. So none of the work is lost. All of the history is preserved, and it lets you be nimble about how you move the fixes between the branches as necessary. That's kind of it. Ideally, there was going to be a little bit more song and dance around breaking the branches, but instead, I'll just leave it on Happy Doc with his second time machine and his family.
And everyone was festive and happy. Awesome. Cool.
That's what I've got. I've got an incomplete presentation and a demo that refused to break on command. If anyone has any questions about anything other than the demo that refused to break, I'd love to hear them.
So let's see. I'm checking out the vBrownbag live feed and questions from the audience. And looks like we are clean.
Just like my unintentionally coherent timeline.
See what I did there? Nice.
I did.
Cool. Awesome. Well, in that case, thank you all for attending. Nope. Somebody.
I hope at the least it's been. I hope it's been entertaining, if not informative.
Nope. I was waiting for somebody to type in a question, and they were actually saying thanks for the demonstration. So thank you very much, Ryan, for taking time off this evening. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now, so we can